Bliss.io.
Good morning, faithful followers. I'm here with my partner Huff, and we're here to discuss the Warner Brothers Netflix merger, which I anticipate with the greatest alacrity. But before we get into it, I want to point out that it's part of a trend for things to come together. A lot of little things. When you have a new market, there are 1,000 new competitors, like, say, artificial intelligence right now. There's a new company popping up every day. But back in the 30s and 40s, there were many more automobile manufacturers in the country than there are now. There was Studebaker, there was American Motors. But over time, as the big get bigger, they tend to drive out the smaller for not being able to keep up or to absorb them into their body. And finally, you get a situation where you have a near monopoly or a monopoly by a couple of companies on a field that reaches just about every citizen in the country. And that's not good for a healthy diversity of opinion. I'm looking at the news corporations, for example. There's just a handful that really have the reach to get into every household: ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox. And then you have a whole bunch of people that are feeding at the scraps from the table, or are else providing an alternative that most people can't get on the big five or the big six, which is common because we all choose these platforms due to our personal preferences and feelings. But when it comes to art, the aggregate is a reduction in freedom. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen with this Warner Brothers Netflix merger. Certainly, it brings a lot of big money together, and they have a lot of new shows in the works, and my hopes are high, as they always are. But one thing we're worried about, for example, is Netflix is producing the next James Bond movie. And we still don't know who James Bond is going to be, but they have said at least it's not going to be a woman. Not that I have anything against women leads in spy movies. I love them. There's Salt, for example, which is a terrific movie. And I'd name about a half dozen others if I had taken my vitamin D this morning. But anyhow, Huff, you take it from here.
Point of fact, Amazon MGM is the giant tech company who swallowed the studio who's making James Bond. Same deal. But that was kind of the precursor to Netflix doing this. And it's not a done deal. Skydance, which is honestly another example of tech swallowing a studio. Skydance is the Ellisons, who are the Oracle multi billionaires. They formed Skydance as a production company, made all the Hasbro stuff, the G.I. Joe and Transformers. They swallowed Paramount really recently, and sounds like they still are going to fight for Warner Brothers Discovery because they want the whole thing. And Netflix just wants the TV and film. But it's hard to know how to feel about it. Not like we can do anything about it.
Well, we cannot watch.
We cannot watch. And I think that's one of the reasons that the studios like MGM and Paramount and Fox and now Warner Brothers is in the situation that they are because they haven't made anything worth watching. For a decade, it's been, I mean, James Bond is James Bond and he's kind of perennial, but they really, really, really swung in a different direction with the latest James Bond movies. And then they killed him off. Paramount started out really well with a Star Trek reboot, and now it's devolved into kind of garbage, and they're running real dry with all their IPs. Obviously, Fox didn't, even now they're still just making Aliens and X-Men and predator. No one's doing anything new, and the tech giants see their opportunity, which is fine. But Narnia is, well, I'll say the two projects that really stick out to me with this Netflix deal. One project was with Netflix already, and one project is something that Netflix is about to pick up. And these are the two things that have really been in the news. Disney took a pretty good swing at the Chronicles of Narnia a few years ago. Probably 20 years ago now. It still seems like a few. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, very well done. Prince Caspian, less so. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, I thought was a disaster because I love the book and they really just kind of, I don't know what they did with it, but it wasn't great. So now Narnia's taken another crack at it. But through Netflix, they hired Greta Gerwig, who directed Barbie. From the beginning, she announced it was going to be a rock and roll Narnia. That doesn't sound like Narnia at all. The rumor was Meryl Streep's going to be the voice of Aslan. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense since Aslan is a boy, and that's actually a major plot point. You got to have a mane if you're going to have the mane shaved off. But the latest news that kind of came out concurrently with the fact that Netflix is looking and probably will buy Warner Brothers, the CEO of IMAX, because they do want to release these theatrically in big screen IMAX, he said, this is the quote. You ready, Mike?
Yeah.
Have you seen this?
No.
This is IMAX CEO Rich Gelfond on Greta Gerwig's Narnia, which starts out not with the first published book, which is Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They're going to start with The Magician's Nephew, which is the first in the series as far as the timeline. And it's the professor who has the wardrobe as an older man when he's a boy, and it kind of is the origin of Narnia. It's the Narnia's genesis, right? Set in like the 1900s, like Victorian, late 1890s, early 1900s, which sets up the Pavinzi kids to be at the adult professor's giant manor with a wardrobe when they're fleeing from London during World War II. And this was Rich Gelfond, the IMAX CEO, his comment on Greta Gerwig's Narnia. This is not your mother's or your grandmother's Narnia. The music in it is unbelievably contemporary music. I'm not going to say specifically, but things like Pink Floyd and The Doors.
Are they going to be in the movie?
He says that Pink Floyd and The Doors is going to be in the movie. So it's unbelievably contemporary. I looked it up.
That's, in all honesty, Pink Floyd has been around for 40 years.
Oh, I looked it up, Mike. He says, this is not your grandmother's Narnia.
Yeah, in your face.
Okay, so I looked up the dates. The Chronicles of Narnia were published between 1950 and 1956. Pink Floyd and The Doors were both, their debuts were in the middle of the 1960s. So a child who read the Narnia books when they were released originally would have been a teenager when The Doors and Pink Floyd came out. So to Zoomers, to the young teens and 20s right now, that literally is their grandmother's Narnia. Pink Floyd and The Doors is their grandmother's music. I just thought that was hilarious. And it's another big red flag about what Netflix is going to do with some really, really good, even though they've been recently mismanaged, Warner Brothers properties. Everyone has been talking, well, everyone being me mostly. Elon Musk liked my tweet yesterday. Warner Brothers is developing Harry Potter, right? And the big sticking point for Harry Potter, as much as they say we're going to do all the seasons, and it's in production, all the seasons, and we're going to do long form storytelling and we're not going to cut anything from the books. And then they cast a traditionally handsome, square-jawed young black man as Professor Snape, who is the ugly, pasty-faced antagonist at Hogwarts. Everyone hated it. Well, everyone's had this little hope since there's nothing been released that somehow he would be recast. Not because he's black, but because the character is not black. It's just as simple as that. And with Netflix, I think everyone's hopes just kind of cratered because Netflix, as you know, is famous for, I mean, it's a meme that Netflix
race swapping,
characters.
sex swapping.
I
country
mean,
swapping, and I watch Netflix regularly, and I would say that 1 in 10 of their original series are very good,
mhm.
and the rest not so good.
One in 10.
My main concern with this merger is what's going to happen to the classics. As an
Mhm.
example, Disney put out a movie called The Song of the South,
Mhm.
which was based on the fairy tales of Uncle Remus
Sure,
and
Brer Rabbit.
Brer Rabbit. Don't throw me in that briar patch. It's a great movie. Does it
Yep.
perpetuate stereotypes? It perpetuates stereotypes reflecting the era in which it was made,
Mhm.
which is the 50s, but it's still a great performance. And they've pulled it. You can't find it anywhere.
Mm-mm.
The thing is that they don't trust modern audiences to understand context. And they're right not to trust modern audiences to understand context because modern audiences are completely ignorant of the classics. When I see that they're absorbing Warner Brothers and MGM, I say goodbye to some of the greatest movies ever made because if they show them at all, they'll be preceded by 5 minutes of trigger warnings, and
Mhm.
then they'll be bowdlerized. And one of my examples is The Bandwagon. It's an MGM production starring Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse. It's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, musicals ever made. And Fred Astaire plays a washed-up song and dance man who's getting his last chance by appearing in a new show. And he arrives in New York City on a train. It takes place in the 50s. 1953 is when it was made. He gets out of the train and he decides to get a shoe shine. And the shoe shine guy is played by a great actor and dancer named Leroy Daniels. And midway through the shoe shine, Fred Astaire gets up and starts singing, and then he gets down and starts dancing, and Leroy Daniels is dancing with him. But because Leroy Daniels plays a shoe shine guy, that movie has been bowdlerized. And just to give you an example of what we're talking about, Pops, are you there? I'd like you to show this if you can. This is just a less than 2 minute cut, a less than 2 minute cut from the movie featuring Sid Charisse. All right, here we go. Hang on.
I see a new sun up in a new sky, and my whole horizon has reached a new high. Yesterday,
Gotta
my
make sure you talk over this a little bit or they'll clip us.
but today, hear it hum a cheery new song. I dreamed a new dream. I saw a new face, and I'm spreading sunshine all over the place. With a new point of view, here's what greets my eye. New love, new love, new song. In the sun.
And that's just a 2 minute excerpt, a 2 minute excerpt from that movie. The movie is still available, but I played it for some friends of mine, and they immediately started bitching about the black shoe shine guy. And I said, my friends, this is why I pointed out to you that the movie was made in 1953. It's safe for now, but I worry about a whole bunch of classic Warner Brothers movies like The Wild Bunch
Mhm.
and Dirty Harry, which are not safe. They're going to
Mhm.
go into those and say, well, we can't show this. It's too violent. And Dirty Harry, his language and attitude is simply unacceptable. Uh, and that's what I'm worried about is that they're bowdlerizing the classics, that they don't trust people to accept them for what they are and from the age in which they came. And that's because these producers, these executives who are in charge, they themselves have no knowledge of classic cinema. They probably went out to Hollywood in their 20s and they got their gigs and they're making movies which are contemporary and hip and they're plugged into the zeitgeist, but they have no knowledge of history or tradition. And there's a reason these movies are classics and are watched over and over again. Uh, I'm afraid they're going to take Lawrence of Arabia off the market now.
Mm-hmm. What I will say is Christmas is coming up, and I will. What I'm going to do for myself, actually. Warner Brothers is going to own. Well, Warner Brothers does own all sorts of old movies, and Netflix is about to own them. Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, Maltese Falcon, Wizard of Oz, The Matrix, Harry Potter, all the DC films, some of which are good and some of which are terrible, but all the DC films, Lord of the Rings, all the Looney Tunes, Batman the Animated Series. If I were going to make a Christmas list, and I own a lot of these already, but I would buy, if you don't have Lord of the Rings, if you don't have The Matrix, if you don't have Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, or Casablanca, if you don't have your favorite DC movies, whether that's Snyderverse or the old Christopher Reeve, or the Tim Burton Batman stuff, whatever you want, Batman the Animated Series, Animaniacs, I would think real strongly about getting those on physical media. Treat yourself. Buy the DVDs to this stuff.
Absolutely. I insist on physical media. One of the reasons is they've been talking about this giant Chinese electromagnetic pulse.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's going to hit us someday, and it's going to wipe out everything that's on the internet. One movie that was made by Warner Brothers is Blazing Saddles. It very rarely appears on television because it is so problematic.
Yeah.
Many people consider it one of the funniest movies ever made, and you've all seen this. They could not make Blazing Saddles today.
Oh no.
And in fact, when you look at a list of the 10 best comedies of the past 10 years, how many of them have you seen, and how many are actually funny? The fact is that all humor is based on tragedy. Mark Twain said that, and it's true. Because you got to laugh. What else are you going to do? You're going to cry. But there's an element of hurt, or at least a juxtaposition of the sacred and the profane, which is the highest state of humor, the absurdity. And someone's going to get their fifis hurt. That's not funny. There are many proper subjects for humor, but that's not one of them. And that's what we're worried about, because a comedian, as Lenny Bruce pointed out, a comedian can't have any boundaries on him. That's why I admire Dave Chappelle. Chappelle's a very brave guy, although he did go to the Arab Emirates and tailor his delivery to them. But anybody who's watched his shows says, yeah, that guy gets it. And it's risky stuff, because humor is risky stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Most of today's young people, they have no idea who Lenny Bruce was.
He was on Hollywood Squares for a long time, right?
I don't know about that. There's a movie about him called Lenny. I think it stars Dustin Hoffman. It's worth watching. I think it was directed by Bob Fosse. In fact, it was another great movie maker. But Lenny Bruce was the first comedian to cross the language barrier and start using fuck, shit, piss, cunt, cock, crap in his routines. And it was so shocking at the time. But shock is a quarter inch away from laughter. And that's what a lot of great comedians understand. There's nothing really safe about a lot of humor. Some of it is safe, but if you stick to safe stuff, you're going to get gentle humor, which it'll elicit a few chuckles. But it's like that cartoon strip, The Spats, about a husband and wife that are constantly feuding. It's just not funny anymore. But when I think back to classic humor, like W.C. Fields, there's one segment where he's running this drugstore and he sees a blind man crossing the street with a cane coming straight towards him. And he goes, "Oh no, not again, not again." And the guy keeps coming and coming. And W.C. Fields knows what's going to happen. What's happened is when the guy gets to the door, he pokes his cane right through the door and shatters it for like the 10th time. And say, "Oh, you're making fun of the blind? How dare you?" But it's awfully funny in context. You have to see it.
That's funny. On that subject, I'll tell you off camera about a project I'm working on because it's along those lines.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So yeah, the jury is out for whether or not Netflix will buy Warner Brothers, and then what happens next after that. But yeah, buy Blazing Saddles if you haven't, and you want it to still be available to you. I'd have that one on DVD because I don't know if Netflix is gonna. I just don't know. I'm not saying for sure, but
Nobody knows.
When you leave your entertainment up to the sensibilities of the huge corporate tech streaming companies, or your digital PlayStation games or whatever, you're rolling the dice. It's just how it is.
The New York Times says Netflix is already the world's largest paid streaming service with more than 300 million subscribers. Bulking up with Warner Brothers Discovery assets would create a colossus with greater leverage over theater owners and entertainment industry unions. It could force smaller companies to merge as they scramble to compete. Well, we should talk about movies for a minute, because theater attendance is way down, and the movie producers are scared shitless. They want to know why, and there are many reasons. But let's start with the obvious. When COVID landed, the sneering oligarchs who controlled this country said, "You can't go, you can't leave your house, don't go to the theater. Theaters are dead. Theaters die. Don't go to small restaurants. You can eat outside in a tent." And but you have to stay 6 feet apart because the germ won't travel more than 5 feet. But if you're closer than 6 feet, then you're doomed. And of course, you can't visit your dying parents in the nursing home, and all this stuff which they've never been held account for. But that was number one. Blow number two is streaming services. Why go to a theater and put up with some kid kicking the back of your chair or the smell of somebody who smuggled in a bratwurst when you can watch at home on your flat screen, which covers the wall? And the quality of the picture is just as good, if not better, from what I've seen. And that's one good reason. And the third reason, of course, is the streaming services are cranking out their own movies. And I have to say, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein was jaw-dropping.
I do want to see that.
Yeah, it was great. A lot of people are complaining that it's not faithful to the book, but the original with Boris Karloff wasn't faithful to the book.
Oh, not even close. It looks like Guillermo del Toro's is much more faithful to the book. The original with Boris Karloff had nothing to do with the book.
I know.
I mean, virtually. Frankenstein had... I mean, Frankenstein's monster was nothing like the Frankenstein of. If you haven't read Frankenstein and you think you know the story because it's so saturated culture, you should read Frankenstein. Not you, but all of you in the audience. It's worth reading. It's not the same as what you think, besides the barest details. And that's true for Dracula, too. If you think you know Dracula because you've been exposed through film and TV, you should read the book.
You don't know Dracula. I should point out that Mary Shelley was 19 when she wrote Frankenstein. And that just blows my mind. Because it took me a long time to learn how to write a novel because I'm a slow learner. But then there's a lot of writers. I collect writers' books, and there's a darling of the New York Times, New Yorker said, called Annie Dillard. And she put out a book called On Writing. And in the book, she says, working full time, it takes a novelist between 2 and 5 years to write a novel. And I laughed out loud when I read that because I have friends who publish 5 novels a year.
Mhm.
Now, they're not all 100,000 words, but they're at least 60,000.
Yeah.
It's simple. You sit down every day and you say, I'm going to get 3,000 words done by noon. And that's my job. And, I used to struggle with that, but not anymore because I've been forced to stay at home recuperating from that operation. By the way, I saw the doc yesterday and she said, all restrictions are lifted. Go out and go crazy. So that's
Good.
over. But
Congrats.
yeah, thank
That's
you.
when the surgery's finally over.
Yeah. But I'm now in the habit of hitting the keyboards, not only because I have stuff that excites me and it's coming along well, but because I have a lot of jobs. People are coming to me more and more to have me write stuff for them, and I just got to grind it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about the two. I have a very busy full-time job. And so
And
it is
people
taking
don't
me-
know Huff is a neurologist,
almost anesthesiologist.
anesthesiologist, excuse me.
It's basically it's all just confusing nerve and drug stuff. But if I was able to write full time, it wouldn't have taken me like 7 years to write this third novel
I
because
know.
it's just tippy typing. I don't know, but yeah, it's discipline. It's sitting down and typing and typing and typing. I mean, you spend 40 hours a week and you still take 5 years to write a novel. You were writing at a glacial pace, glacial, and some people do it. George Martin will never finish Game of Thrones.
Well, yeah, but you're working 40 hours a week in a hospital, so you have it's not an excuse. It's what you do. It's your profession. And when you get home, you got 4 kids. You're not really in a position to hit the keys whenever you want.
Sure not. I'm going to try to do it today, though.
Good for you.
Yeah, I need it. I'm banging it out, Mike. We got more to talk about, but I think that's pretty good for today. The Christmas shopping is calling, and by the
All
Christmas
right.
shopping, I mean my wife wants me to take her Christmas shopping. Glad you're done. Glad you're done with recuperation.
Thanks, Huff. And thanks, our loyal viewers, for watching. Listen to us vent.
And Pop said Young Frankenstein was the best Frankenstein. Young Frankenstein was the best Frankenstein.
I
You
have
should
to
also
watch
own that
that
on
again.
DVD. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's Warner Brothers or not. I imagine it probably is because it's the same team as Blazing Saddles. But you should own that just because you should own that.
Right.
All right, Mike, we'll talk to you later.
Hey.
Ozzy, what are you doing? Come and have a look at this lovely book that was sent over.
You're wrapping in the perpendicular.
Oh, go on and spit the back out your mouth. No one can understand you like that.
Very now. See how 5 dentists and all.
Oh, well, that's not much better. Ozzy, why don't you sing to me? I can always understand you when you sing to me.
Fucking my brains. What is this my publisher sent me? Inked in black with art so sweet.
So what do you think? Do you like it?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Thanks, Pops.
If you missed the live viewing of any Madness Entertainment Group production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. We'll see you next time on the Madness